Hi and welcome. And today I actually just want to kind of ask a very simple question. And as the title suggests, how do you approach a short story collection? Now, the reason I'm asking this is that I have read short story collections before, so I definitely do not find short story collections to be something new and strange and uncharted territory for me. But for whatever reason, I never feel like I have enjoyed the collections as much as I would love to. I would kind of have this expectation on how I would enjoy a collection, but then after I finish one, it would kind of feel flat to me, like I didn't get enough, or that I didn't get what I expected from that collection. And it's not necessarily because stories are bad or some of the stories are not enjoyable. I guess like when I consider the whole collection, it just didn't have enough punch the way that a novel would. Now I usually read novels. That is something that I read most of the time. And whenever I read short story collections, I would actually start with the first story, and I think that's mostly out of because of habit. Because when you read novels, it makes sense to read the first chapter instead of jumping around because that would be weird. And I kind of wonder, would there be any difference if I start, in with other stories? Would there be any change to how I experience the collection if I do that instead? And I'm just really curious to know how other people approach short story collections, and how how would you read a collection and enjoy it? Do you do anything else besides just reading the story in sequence? Or do you not read the story in sequence? Do you do anything else after that? Some sort of supplementary activity that accompanies your reading. I don't know, maybe some people do. And because recently I've been thinking that maybe reading short story collections in sequence is probably a little bit too vanilla, too boring. I feel like I just want to spice things up a little bit. And so what I am trying to do these days is that perhaps I would just kind of read one or two stories from a book, and then I go to another collection and read one or two stories, random stories, so that kind of makes things a little bit more exciting. But at the same time, I'm also currently reading multiple novels, and I also jumped around between novels. One of those books is not actually something that I'm currently reading. I read this one quite a while ago, and it's by Angela Carter. This is called Black Venus, and it contains some kind of crazy stories in here. I definitely think that the premise, the characters, the plot of the stories in here are pretty interesting. I would say when it comes to the rating of how interesting the stories are, I would say it's about 9 or 10. They are very interesting, but I think the writing is probably a little bit too flowery for me. I think that's probably her signature style. But I actually took this book as my lunchtime reading, and I realized that that was a big mistake because I kept putting off reading this book even if it was lunch break. So that was a sign that this book was not suitable for lunch break reading. Okay, and so I brought it back home, and it just sat there. I've not really read this for a few months now, so maybe sometime in the future. Another one that I have is by Yi Yun Lee, and this one is called Gold Boy, Emerald Girl Now, this book was actually bought by my sister. I think it was last year or last 2 years, and I only just started to get around to reading this book. Another one is actually something that I bought recently, and I think that one main reason that I want to read this was because I really want to read something by Thomas Mann, and this one is called Death in Venice. I guess this is a good introduction to his writing. I read a little bit about him when I was in German class before, but that was long time ago, and it was just a short story. I can't even remember what that short story was. This was a book that I got from when I went to the bookstore one day. I think it was last year, and I thought it was really interesting. This is a locally published book, I think, in Malaysia. It's called The Principal Girl: Feminist Tales from Asia. Now, I am very much someone who really likes to read stories written by women authors, or stories with female characters. I would say that I enjoy that kind of literature is something that I am very interested in. So to see that there is a book locally published and feminist tales, so I assume that they would be like stories containing awesome women. Of course I would have to grab this one. But the thing is, I would say this book was actually the one that kind of prompted me to ask this question, because I read this book. I started reading this book by reading first the first story. So I read this book in sequence, but I was stuck in the first story because the first story was just it didn't work. And I was really disappointed because I had a lot of expectation for this one, and the first story didn't work. And so it kind of changed my mood on this whole collection, and I kind of disliked that my attitude towards like a whole body of work is influenced by that one story. And I don't know, sometimes I thought that it might probably be something that I did wrong. So I think I'll still try to read more of this the stories in this book. But that first story, it just, maybe I'll talk about this book after I finish it. And finally, I have this really beautiful short story collections with beautiful cover, hardcover some more. It's called The Classic Tales of Horror. Now, this book, okay, it says here there's a subtitle, a collection of spine-tingling short stories. To be honest, I've never felt this kind of so-called getting my spine tingled while reading books, really. So I don't really know how it feels to read horror stories. Is it possible to be scared by horror stories? I know I'm scared by horror movies, but stories, I'm not sure. Maybe my imagination is just not good enough. But I think there are some really nice titles in here. Some kind of really well-known authors. Although for some reason I didn't see anything by Poe. I thought that there would be a story by Poe in here, but there was none by Poe. This one was this edition was published by Arcturus Publishing, and I guess the main thing that I want to read in this book, the main thing I look forward the most is reading stuff by Sheridan Le Fanu. I'm particularly interested in Green Tea and Carmilla, so yeah, I wanted to try that. And I just have kind of like some bit of a sad story regarding this book. You know how beautiful it is, right? Like this cover is so glossy and the color scheme is so beautiful. Recently, I just found that my walls in my room has been dripping with water, especially during when it rains. Then the wall will become wet, and then some of the paint actually starts to flake. But that's not the bad part. The worst part is that, I've been keeping my books in one corner of my desk, and that corner is, just right next to the wall, and I just found out that that corner became very moldy. And I mean, just look at this. This book is now kind of moldy. And I don't know if I should have touched that, but I think I touched this so many times already. But I wash my hands. But it's really sad. This book is so beautiful. And now it's moldy. It used to be very white. I know I'm very uncomfortable with incredibly bleached white pages because it makes my eyes hurt. But seeing this book becoming like this, that is probably one of the most tragic thing that happened to me this couple of months. So I'm really sad. And talking about defaced books, I actually just bought one book today, and I'm gonna say I finally bought that book. I've always been wanting to try reading this book, but I just could not find it. Online stores in Malaysia didn't have this book. Also, I blame it on the pandemic because I think a lot of books are sold out during this pandemic in Malaysia. So that's kind of annoying. But finally, I found it. It's a really beautiful book, new, some more, not used. I think it's not used. It's A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Finally, right? Finally. But you know what happened? This book just came to me this evening when I got back from work, and I went to the guardhouse and took my parcel. And so I unpacked it, put it on my bed, and somehow, I don't really want to talk too much about how it happened, but now this book was stained with curry because for some whatever reason, put my plastic bag on the bed and that plastic bag contained some garbage, and I put it on the bed, and now this book is stained by curry. And it used to be very beautiful, but it was only beautiful for only a few hours, not even a couple of hours. So that's really sad. Yeah, well, I guess that's it for me for now, and that's all for this video, and I hope to see you again next time in a different one. So until then, take care. Hopefully you don't get your books ruined by mold or curry, and yeah, see you again next time. Bye bye.